Welcome to the Old Soul blog, an exploration of spirituality and life. I appreciate you stopping by and hope you might consider clicking the subscribe button so you can be notified of future postings. Check out oldsoul.blog if you want to know more about what makes me tick, or if you want to browse more of my material. There was a time when the rhythm of my life was largely determined by the expectations and seasons of the ecclesial calendar. While I now enjoy the freedom that retirement from church-based ministry offers, I do miss some of the rhythms and even the disciplines that pastoral engagement entails. That is particularly so in the high seasons of the church year, seasons like Easter and Advent and Christmas. So this year I thought that over the 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, I would revisit the discipline of Advent with its traditional themes of hope, peace, joy, and love. In this second week in Advent, we focus on peace, shalom, turning our minds and hearts towards claiming that deep serenity, harmony, wholeness that will be one outworking of the Spirit of God within us. I've always thought it a little ironic that just as the Christmas season gathers momentum and we get busy with present buying and food shopping and calendar juggling and work deadlines, we are invited, perhaps even challenged, to focus on peace. For many people, Christmas is not a particularly peaceful time. It's fun, certainly, but hardly peaceful, as we manage children, end-of-year breakups, family gatherings, traffic, overeating, and everything else. And all that in the context of a wider world riven in so many places and dimensions by war and conflict. It may feel quite incongruous to be announcing peace in this Advent season. Just as it may have been when John the Baptist, amidst the Roman occupation of Palestine some 2,000 years ago, emerged from the desert to proclaim a new world order of peace and justice. Most of the people who heard him thought he was crazy, and the religious leaders ridiculed him as another harebrained fool who seemed to think he was Elijah. The more sympathetic may have regarded him as a wide-eyed idealist, a nice concept, but totally out of touch with reality. A dreamer who's been out in the desert sun for too long. I mention John the Baptist because the Gospel reading prescribed for the second Sunday in Advent, Luke chapter 13 and verses 1 to 6, tells his story, summarizing his message with those very familiar words, "Prepare the way of the Lord." The lectionary, it seems, is urging us to follow John's lead and prepare ourselves to receive the new age of peace and justice that will be instigated by our celebration of the incarnation of God in Jesus. Oh, sounds wonderful. But does it really ring true in the context of our personal and global experiences? The first century world into which John the Baptist spoke certainly continued its course of violence and injustice. And the following 2,000 seasons of Advent and Christmas do not appear to have quenched the human proclivity for war. So what's the point of revisiting this theme of peace year after year after year if no one is listening? Well, I believe the answer to my rhetorical question lies in how we understand the incarnation of God and how we conceive of peace. And by the way, I don't believe that no one is listening. Witness the plethora of peace marches and demonstrations and protests around the world. But I do suspect that the Christian church is not communicating well what is meant by either the incarnation or peace. Let me explain. First, the incarnation. It may be bad timing to declare it at this time of the year, but I don't need to believe in the virgin birth. I don't need to hold that Jesus was born by some magical, mystical, non-sexual means in order to believe that he was the Son of God. Because what stood out as something special and led to his identification as Son of God was not his birth, but his life and his teaching, his essence and his personhood. In fact, the gospel birth narratives were created after his death as a way of explaining the special relationship with God that was evident in his life. Jesus' designation as Son of God was born out of the way he lived, not out of the way he was born. Significantly, this understanding of the incarnation doesn't diminish the wonder of Jesus' birth, it amplifies it, because it suggests that any one of us, if we faithfully follow the way of Jesus, can experience and live out of the same depth of relationship with God. Of course, that may be a challenge for many of us. It may not even seem humanly possible. But with Jesus' life and teaching as our guide, and with the spark of the Spirit within us, we undertake the journey we call life, seeking with every step to move closer and closer to the wholeness and harmony and well-being that is the outcome of deep connection with God. Incidentally, if you want to know more about my concept of God, check out my podcast titled, Am I a Christian Atheist? So, on the basis of that understanding of the incarnation, let's now consider the nature of peace. Said Gandhi, peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to cope with it. American President Ronald Reagan, believe it or not, expanded on this thought when he said, peace is not the absence of conflict, it is the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means. Both insights may well have been grounded in an awareness of the life and teaching of Jesus, whose life was marked by a deep, deep sense of shalom, of wholeness, well-being, serenity, and harmony, even in the most challenging and threatening of circumstances. Jesus, Gandhi, Reagan, and so many others who have uttered similar words point us to an essential wisdom. True peace begins within each one of us. Lasting peace will not be effected by any external intervention or regulation, and certainly not by any divine cataclysmic disruption of the human experience. Lasting peace will be ushered in by the determination of people of goodwill to search within themselves and discovering there that the deep well of shalom that is the essence or spark of the Creator Spirit, learning to live intentionally and consistently out of that well. Does that make sense? And further, this is not a uniquely Christian quest. It is a yearning common to all faith systems. Enlightenment in Buddhism, moksha in Hindu, paradise in Islam, mukti or liberation in the Sikh faith, ek or light in the Ekankar faith, etc., etc. All these are anchored in the quest to discern the centre of deep peace and harmony that is within us. Now, I love the pageantry, the music, the mystery, the wonder of the traditional Christmas story. But it does tend to point beyond the real world and to imply that our yearning is for God to come again, just like in the Christmas story, and to act in some dramatic way to rescue a fallen humanity. But that was never the point of the incarnation. Rather, the point of the incarnation is the revelation that the Creator Spirit can be born within each and every one of us, in every place and in every time, and that the solution to what ails us is embedded within us, if only we might choose to seek it. How might we discern this deep centre of peace? How might we cultivate shalom in this Advent season? Well, it's not at all difficult. One simple strategy: take time to breathe. Create spaces in your life for reflective practice. Go for a walk, lie on the grass, smell the roses, revel in nature, listen to music, bask in silence, meditate, and so on. Create space to breathe, literally, because those spaces will allow the Creator Spirit to do its work within you. And when you find yourself in a situation that creates anxiety or feels overwhelming or assaults your senses with loud noise or frenetic crowds, take a deep breath, center yourself, and anchor into that deep well of peace that is within you. It is there, and you can breathe your way into it. The assurance that despite signs to the contrary, all will be well. All will be well. And everything is okay. Because the God of Jesus, the spark of the Creator Spirit, is with and within us, guiding us gently to shalom, wholeness, well-being, and harmony. Well, that's it for this podcast. Thanks for sticking it out to the end. I do hope you found it worthwhile. Incidentally, if you prefer to read rather than listen, you can find the text of this podcast, along with a host of other resources, at www.oldsoul.blog. And do subscribe if you would like to be notified of future presentations. This is David Brooker, and I look forward to catching you next time.